So an NFT stands for non-fungible token, which probably helps not at all. But what a non-fungible token means is that you can't trade it one for one. So cash, for example, if I have $1, I can trade it for a specific number of euros or a specific number of pesos, depending on what the value is that day. But non fungible tokens are things that represent maybe artwork or other uh, goods that have varying levels of value depending on the rarity, depending on the quality, depending. So, for example, a baseball card may have different value depending on who's on the card and how rare it is and the quality of the card. So NFTs are traditionally used with blockchain and with cryptocurrency to sell digital goods like artwork, but they can also represent physical goods like wine. So that's the basic idea of what an NFT is.
And what's really interesting about NFTs is that for the first time, peer to peer commerce is enabled using these assets without intermediaries. And this is very powerful. I think my first shared streaming platform that we launched, with Nespairs, which is the third owner of Tencent today, so they've done well, was back in 2006 and 2007. The shared streaming was the idea that you can actually stream video, film, television type sports programming, but really take the value of that stream and distribute it between many different participants so that they can actually have a better experience and a cheaper experience at the time. But in countries like China, shared streaming was used because people didn't have access to programming, and now they have gotten the access. So just like that with NFTs, if you didn't think or you didn't have access to a commercial transaction, now you actually do. And you no longer have that list of intermediaries between you and the other person on the other side of that transaction. I think that is probably one of the reasons why NFTs have taken the world by the storm, and not just in the applications that we're seeing today, but in the others that are in development that we're seeing every day. Do you guys have any similar examples about NFTs that showcase sort of the liquidity of that market?
Well, I think of NFTs as sort of a way of democratizing collecting. I mean, I think collecting at one time was mostly for rich people, right? You were collecting diamonds or you were collecting wines. And with NFTs, especially in the world of artwork, uh, sort of average normal people can be investing in these works without having to spend millions of dollars. Although it's been in the news because there have been some very, very large sales over the last couple of months, and there have been sales with traditional auction houses like Christie's. But most of the NFTs are with people who are not spending millions of dollars and want to collect fine things.
Excellent. I think also what I'm seeing is not just the ability to get access to buying something, but also the ability to gain access to selling something in a more transparent and easier and frictionless way. So if you look at artists, I would say one of the most difficult things for an artist was to actually sell their art for a variety of reasons, access to buyers, ability to promote oneself, sell, make a business out of it. They're creative and not necessarily business focused. But all of a sudden, with NFTs, pretty much every artist I know is trying to figure out a way to gain access directly to their fans and their buyers of their art.
Absolutely. And I think this really ties back to what you said about not needing intermediaries. In the past, an artist would have to look for representation, they'd have to find a gallery, and then they would hope that the gallery actually promoted them, and then they would have to give a big percentage of their art away. There's a lot of steps in selling that art that really had nothing to do with art. And I think the NFT makes that transaction much more direct and much easier.
And Scott just joined us. Scott, you want to give us your background really quick?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. I am lead the blockchain team at Kadelsky Security. We primarily focus on securing things that people do in this world of blockchain ledgers, NFTs, etc. And I'm one of many opinions and share them freely here.
And you have quite a few opinions on NFTs, Scott. You're coming from the technology background. So why don't you just give the audience just a little bit of your perspective of your coordinate system on this?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and we'll preface this why this is Scott's opinion and nobody else's, but the NFT market has been given its attention by all the press around the art and people sort of realizing, the high end possibilities here. But let's not forget that under the covers is still a blockchain and a ledger and wallets and all this stuff that actually makes it technically feasible to pull this off. I mean, this is a pretty interesting use case. I think it's still limited to 1% of the 1% that actually consume if you think about, mass adoption. But we're at the point where this sort of marketing spend, the marketing message around, hey, it's cool for art, is actually driving a significant amount of investment in the tech, which is driving a big understanding on, is this actually useful? Is it relevant? Is it just a way for a few people to make money a different way? Is it legal? Is it an NFT property? Is it an investment? If it's on a blockchain, can you get rid of the money laundering that's, prevalent in the art industry? Like there's just all this stuff that comes up because we're starting to discover what's going on here. And what's really cool under the covers is, from the tech point of view, is we know this is a unique thing on a chain. We think we know what it represents because it's got a picture attached or some metadata. We don't have many guarantees beyond that. And that's, I think, what's interesting, especially to me in the business side of what I do, which is, so just because you have a unique thing on Ethereum doesn't mean I can't go deploy the exact same unique thing on Solana or on Polkadot or on, one of the other 300 chains out there and essentially have 300 copies of the same unique thing if those two things go together. So you still have all the same problems of anti-piracy and watermarking and guaranteeing assertion of who the creator was. Like just because you mint it doesn't make you the creator. And there's a lot of big technology problems there, but a lot more legal problems and precedent problems that we're uncovering. And I think as the world is moving, if you assert for a minute that the world is going 100% digital and people want to consume it digital, they want to store it digital, and they want to pay for it digital, we have to work out all these kinks. And this is a really good excuse to work out all the kinks because this is stuff we emotionally care about, whether it be a game artifact or a cartoon or a piece of art from an artist we love. Not only will people make money along the way, but consumers have to figure out how to make this work, and we have to make it work better for consumers.
Yeah, I love that. So you guys have done a lot of security audits on exchanges, on
Yep.
exchanges that deal with traditional tokens like, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. But you're now starting to work on audits on NFT marketplaces. What does that look like? What is it about?
Well, if you think about what an NFT is, it is a token on a chain, right? It's controlled by math and wallets. It's transacted on that chain and not between chains. And there's the equivalent of a bunch of computer programs or smart contracts that organize the behavior of this NFT. Who gets paid when it gets moved around, how it gets moved around, how it got created in the first place, can you destroy it or not? So when you go look at the security of this, you have to think about a couple of different reasons why you would even look. Number one, can you steal it? So that's, about the wallets and does the contract behave appropriate? Can you duplicate it? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, depending on the rules of the marketplace. And then is the thing safe as a whole? Because there's potentially real money involved here. If you are spending 10 cents and it gets stolen, you're like, whatever. But if you're spending $10 million, it's a big deal, right? And so we're starting to look at what the intention was, what the sort of safety violations are, and under what circumstances would there really be a meaningful impact of security if something went wrong. And that's usually in the contract layer. It's sometimes in the blockchain layer, almost always on the human layer. I was at DEF CON a couple days ago, and I spoke during the blockchain session, and the thing I was quoted as saying is, you can never underestimate the human. And we don't do enough of that in this industry. We don't guess how poorly the human will act here. And I think that's something we need to do a lot. And we do a lot when we, sort of audit NFTs, which is, how does the human mess this up? Oh, they deleted their wallet. Oh, I guess all their NFTs are gone. Like, that's not okay that be the outcome. But right now, that's kind of how it is. You lose your stuff, it's gone.
So what are all the different ways you can lose your NFT? Let's start with that. Just like basics. Like, you can lose your wallet.
Well, you can lose your password and have not written down your keys. That's, I think, the easiest one, because your stuff's there. Here's the other thing, Scott, back me up on this. Your stuff is not gone. Your stuff is still on the blockchain. It's still there.
But is it yours anymore?
Technically, yes, it's yours, but you can't do anything with it.
So, when you think about
it's not provably yours, but it's not provably anybody else's either.
The access mechanism to NFTs is a wallet generally. And if you, the human, lose access to your wallet in any manner, you no longer can you can't transact it anymore. You might be able to look at it, but you can't do anything with it. I would argue that you can't prove that you own it. If you can't get in the wallet, I don't know if it would hold up that it's still yours unless it's in your possession in a cold wallet, like Ledger. This is my Ledger,
No.
Tricky.
You can prove it. Watch. Go to OpenSea and look up my name and look up my account. My account, my profile, my picture, it's me, and you can see everything I own. And if I lose access to my MetaMask, I can't get in there. OpenSea still has my MetaMask attached to my profile. There's not a damn thing I can do to get access to anything that was attached to that wallet if I lose what you're doing. And that's not as easy. It should be a WYSIWYG wizard and make it very stupid simple. Like it is to create a Wax account and to mint something with just literally a name and a picture and boom. So then you literally are talking about a JPEG with a serial number, which is how valuable? According to Curdy, not. So those are the different things. So Wax makes it easy in some ways and not easy in other ways. But, they did think about, we've got to stupid proof this because most consumers are stupid when it comes to these things. So give them 15 different options and don't require that they have logged in with that option before. Just match the email address and give them access.
Yeah, and I ranted a month or so ago about buying Wax P tokens to make a purchase. And it took me all weekend because based on my situation, it was just send it to Binance Chain and swap it on Binance.com. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. So
no, KuCoin is the only way. So you have to send ETH or something to KuCoin and then transfer the ETH to Wax and then go from Wax. And the fun part, I wrote this up because I was like, okay, everybody, I'm about to make you cry. And they went, okay. And because I was teaching them how to mint on Wax. And I said, okay, so from whatever you have, send ETH to KuCoin. That's going to go into your main account. Then send that to your trading account. Trade it for Wax. Then go from your trading account back to your main account. Now send it back over here to your Wax wallet. And they're like, okay. I said, how many boxes of tissue did we just go through? Because every time you go to KuCoin and you are not a trader and you see all those candlesticks and all those numbers, you literally tip into overwhelm and your eyes roll in the back of your head. And that's very normal for mainstream consumers. We can't make them do that.
Yeah. I think another thing that's really important to talk about when it comes to NFTs is the notion that in a lot of cases, the NFT is the certificate that says you own the thing, but it's not the thing. Right?
Well, the
So
thing can't be held on the blockchain affordably. A lot of
right,
these things are 50 gigs or 50
right.
megs. And so it's all on IPFS, which means anybody can go to IPFS if they have the hash. So,
So I think we should tell people what IPFS because
oh,
not everybody knows.
interplanetary file system. So think about Dropbox, that's decentralized, a decentralized Dropbox where anybody, if and using Pinata, it is really like Dropbox. You can upload anything and then you can house it there. And then in Wax, you can't attach files, but you can attach an IPFS hash. So you would go to Pinata, you would upload your file, you would get the hash, and then you would put the hash in your Wax minting, and then you'd have a pretty little picture at the top, and then the unlockable content would be I don't know what, but that's you got to make it small because you can only get 2 megs.
Yeah, so let's dig into that one more thing for the purpose
Yeah,
of
I thought
NFTs
you'd
and
have something
just
to say,
say,
Scott.
so so let's pretend I need a way to share files globally without a central party, right? That's kind of the use case here. Where do I put these NFTs? Where do I put this video so that everybody can always get it? You can't be shut down by a government, and it's all over the place. Okay, so well, how about I get a whole bunch of people to help? Hey, a million people. I want you all to help me distribute this. Okay, great. Well, they're not going to do it for free, right? So I'll reward them for putting some files on their PC in their house or in their data center and giving me some of their internet. So some of these files end up in my house, but I'm not going to do this for free because I'm altruistic. I want to get rewarded. So I get rewarded in IPFS tokens to make this thing work. And so by opening up systems like this, where everybody can participate, deciding to verify that this stuff is still legit and keeping it censorship proof and making it available, suddenly we don't need Amazon or Google or Dropbox, these commercial entities, to host all this content. The tricky thing is it's not very enterprise friendly to rely on a bunch of people with Cox or Comcast to host $1 million objects. Like, that's kind of silly. So we got to work through the kinks of how to make this enterprise ready or globally ready actually. But that, I think, your object being anywhere on the world hosted by IPFS by people, and they do that because they get rewarded, is a pretty cool thing. With how to open this up. Same thing with the blockchain, right? This stuff works with consensus. People run nodes, they get rewarded. What else do people do? They stream videos now and they get rewarded. They guarantee that these objects are good, or they do community voting on certain things if it's good or bad. And I know some people who are moderators on some of these other platforms, they can say, hey, that's pirated content, and here's my proof, let's take it down. And so then this DAO can take it down, or there can be a vote on it, sort of thing. And so that, I think, is how this stuff works together, for people who are unfamiliar with that.
Speaking of DAOs, should we talk about those, Mariana?
Yeah, let's do DAOs next because DeFi has a lot of regulatory issues this week. So leave it for last, and let's talk about what a DAO is.
So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. And what it means is it's a way of organizing companies, groups, or value it's different than the stock market in that it doesn't have a centralized leadership, and the company is based on, or the group is based on rules that are developed when the DAO is created. So decisions with the group are usually made based on a set of rules that's created at the beginning, and each action or vote is represented as some form of transaction on the DAO. But it's a way of organizing companies or groups or businesses that is not a traditional sort of stock markety centralized organization kind of way to do it.
And with DAOs, I think we're looking at a completely new form of organization that's very unique to this space. And we finally have a DAO regulation in Wyoming in the US, which is the first, organized DAO structure here in this country. And I'm sure that many other countries are adopting regulations as we speak on this. DAOs are very interesting to me, looking at innovation and venture initiation, something I've done my whole career, because they create a very, very focused group of people inside an organization, so sort of working in the same direction to grow the value of that organization versus the centralized world, the C Corps and the LLCs of the world, where, one can argue the culture can be top down or bottom up, but at the end of the day, people don't have that vested interest in creating a larger value, more profitability for everyone. It stems from the fact that people in a DAO feel like they're participating in the actual management of the organization. They're being paid, for their work and their contribution. And ultimately, they own, equity or tokens in this DAO. And therefore, if that value increases, their wealth and prosperity increases. So it's a very unique organizational structure and very motivated to keep itself going.
I think it's really fascinating. Wyoming is really forward thinking. I've had the pleasure of going with Brittany Kaiser and Caitlin Long and lobbying for a lot of the blockchain laws in Wyoming. So I've gotten to meet the legislature and the governor and everyone, and they're very, it's this dichotomous thing where you're hanging out with people wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and they're literally on the bleeding edge of the blockchain, and it's a little surrealistic, but they get it. And the whole idea with the LLCs is it's a DAO LLC, and really the only difference is if the DAO misbehaves, then the charter can be pierced. Otherwise, it can't. So it gives you kind of a country certainty and the ability to open bank accounts and all of these other things because you're an official organization, but it recognizes that the entirety of the structure and the operations and the management of that entity is on the blockchain in a decentralized fashion. So it's pretty darn cool, and I'm loving the way that they put it together because it's a little bit of sandbox and a lot of trust. But we've been running DAOs for 5 years easily, pretty successfully. But this way, it gives it some kind of permanence and residency. So I like it.
And what's really interesting, Adrian, in addition to the fact that we have some sort of a seal of approval of some regulators around the globe that these organizations are here to stay, what's really interesting about it is just this idea that being inside one of these organizations, people who are part of it feel part of that bigger whole than themselves. And they also feel a little bit more in charge of their destiny. Now, the question is going to be, should you form a DAO or not form a DAO for the actual business that your group of people, your team is trying to launch? And I've had that question posed to me the other day from a company in India that has a very interesting kind of broadband video company in the making, and they really didn't have a business plan done yet, and they didn't really understand who their end users are. And to me, you should really start with, what are we trying to solve? What is the problem? And is there a group of people that we can engage in this DAO that would solve that problem in such a way that that group of people would uniquely benefit from this, versus let's just put a DAO inside this venture because it's cool and we'll get more resources and we have more ways of maybe succeeding in this marketplace. What do you guys think?
I think there's things that can only be done as a DAO. I think that there are things that are difficult to do as a nonprofit. And if you do it as a DAO, you can get more people involved because they're going to be able to, if you can increase the value of a DAO token. With a nonprofit, people are volunteering and they're taking a tax write-off. But if you're doing it as a DAO, you can do hackathons, create things, solve problems, do just as good of, globally beneficial work, but give people the ability to profit from it. So I think it's a structure that we've been missing.
I I'm going to throw my hat in the I don't believe in DAOs side of this conversation because I'm not convinced they're useful out of a couple of use cases for the people who are the purists. And I would love to debate that more later. But there's there's a lot of evidence over mankind that people working together as a huge group are very poor managers of the thing they're trying to accomplish. You need a couple of leaders, you need a way to concentrate power generally to be successful in an enterprise. Now, I'm over exaggerating for a point, but like I think there will be a lot of missteps in DAOs. Thankfully, they're legal to try now. That's the first step to giving it a shot. But I also think it could turn into a huge multi-layer marketing circle jerk if not managed the right way for the right reason. And to your point about you got to decide if you need a DAO, like that's a really important step because DAOs are not appropriate for everything. Like I don't think like Sony or Disney should be run as a DAO. Like you need to make hard decisions on things. And when you propose to DAO, okay, let's lay off 10% of the workforce, everybody vote. I don't know. Is that appropriate for
I
everybody to
can't.
have a say?
Well, Scott,
Zappos. Go
hey,
ahead,
Scott.
Jason.
Hey, Adrian. I would only suggest, Scott, that yes, I think you're right that bringing people together in a collaborative environment does create management situations. But I think that's more because of the culture that we're accustomed to with the way organizations work. I don't think it's an innate situation. And I think we just have to learn how to manage things differently. And I think a really good example is Linux and the way that the entire Linux culture took off with essentially very little centralized environment. So, I do agree with you on most of the level there, Scott.
Okay, I want to talk about a holacracy and Zappos. So Tony Hsieh transformed Zappos into a holacracy, gave people the option of taking an exit if they didn't want to do it. But it literally is a decentralized autonomous organization with each individual little pod doing their own thing. It isn't top down. It's very cooperative, and I think it's like the holy grail of DAOs. And if everyone looked at that as the architecture of the future, then I think we could make DAOs work. Do I think that people are going to abuse them? Yes, which is why Wyoming put in the thing that says they can take it away. I think that was an important piece in that legislation where there is some kind of adult supervision going on. But done well, I think it could be the organization of the future. So, Scott, we will have to revisit this in a decade and see how it went.
Sounds good
I'm
to me.
going to split the difference and I'm going to say that I think it could be a very powerful tool, but I think the growing pains are going to be enormous. I think that the cultural shift and the power shifts that are going to be required are a big deal. So I think it'll be interesting to see how well people make that change.
It's interesting that I think we may be coming from a coordinate system that is not a DAO. Our backgrounds, I've been sort of gigging my whole life and launching ventures and going in and out of, larger companies and running divisions of those, but always kind of advising on the side startups. So, in some sense, I kind of experienced these environments over the last couple of decades more so than many people who were inside large corporate structures. And I have to say that being exposed to innovation, to people's enthusiasm about building new things, whether that was inside a very large company like Sony, where I started on the venture capital team, looking at all the new opportunities for Sony Pictures, or whether that was, running an incubator at KPMG and seeing all the innovation there, and then sitting on all these boards over the years, I feel that people in the innovation DAO like environments build a lot more value because they feel vested in what they're building. So I feel that people who are interested in building value will be automatically drawn to this new kind of formations and would want to contribute. I like the nonprofit example that Adrian gave, and I like the open source, examples that Jason is giving. I believe that there will be DAOs in entertainment in, the businesses I've been in for most of my life, film, television, music, games, just really wide open for creation of these kinds of companies from the talent that we have in Hollywood that has been underutilized.
I think it's there's. I mean, I just had this thought, this brain. Anyway, uh, you could combine a DAO and DeFi, right? This is how you could do a holacracy. It's one token, but people who want to participate in different pieces of it, they can stake their token, and those are the pieces that they can actually vote on, are the things that they've staked. Rather than it being, 100 million people deciding everything, they pick what areas they want to focus on and contribute in, and by staking in those particular pieces of the projects, those are the things that they could vote on. That would not be difficult to do.
I love that. And I'm glad that you said that, because Jeanette's going to define DeFi. And we should then talk about these hybrid models for entertainment in other areas. Jeanette, you want to define DeFi, or do you want
Yeah,
me
I
to?
just I just invited Mark up, but it's DeFi is decentralized finance. And really, the main idea is that it's used to remove all of the intermediaries in financial transactions between people and their products and people and their money. So instead of having a bank and a bank officer and all of those different pieces in between, it's a blockchain driven direct way to connect financial transactions.
So it's peer-to-peer transactions. And, I would say most of the applications in 2020 have seen peer-to-peer transactions in finance, as there's, not enough liquidity in those markets globally, et cetera. But we can have peer-to-peer transactions in almost any industry. I worked on peer-to-peer transactions in video streaming, back in 2006, 2007, and all the way to today's date. Shared streaming, shared storage, shared way of delivering, distributing, and managing and marketing media. I think that's going to be a really big thing this year and next year. What else are you guys seeing as sort of, Adrian, maybe you want to elaborate on the whole DeFi structure of what you're seeing for
Well, it wasn't actually for entertainment. It could be because they could literally do it per project. But I'm launching the Crypto Vixens DAO, which is currently a nonprofit project of the Digital Legacy Foundation, which is a 501c3 registered nonprofit. That it really focuses on blockchain based projects. Anyway, so Crypto Vixens has a number of projects that we work on, including a whole decentralized blockchain certification program for girls, and a lot of other education, plus a lot of other just regular projects. But this way, people could own Vixen tokens and then stake them on whatever project they want to participate in, and then benefit from the success of those projects, as well as vote on and have governance over that project. But you could do the same thing with film. The thing I was thinking about with film is people can participate and they can be rewarded in tokens for that particular project, but benefit from the entire quote unquote studio system of that token, if you wanted to do it that way. And one of the things that I'm doing for my NFT project for my film is it's a trust for everybody that I can't find who participated in the film more than 20 years ago. There was 80 people that are going to get royalties. I can only find like 7. So everybody else, all of their profits and proceeds go into a trust that just sits there until we can find them, and then we'll distribute them.
Although I think that's great. I think that the studio system is ripe for massive disruption right now. I think that a lot of the structures of how movies have been financed and managed in the past are starting to crumble. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for filmmakers to be much more direct in how they create their content and much less dependent on a few studio execs to make those decisions.
Can I ask a stupid question? Because this is where I get like into arguments with people. So I would love smarter people than me to answer this, especially Mariana, who comes from the real studio, the legit mainstream studio system. DeFi. If I DeFi a movie, is that not a security? And how is it that everybody keeps going, no, DeFi is peer to peer, so therefore it's not a security, and the SEC doesn't have anything to do with it. So but isn't fundraising for a film a security? Period. Like, somebody please explain to me how I can explain to other people so they understand, because I'm clearly not doing it well.
Yeah, no, so I think you hit on a point that's going to be regulated in, in the near future in some way, in by jurisdiction. Like, we have to deal with regulation by jurisdiction on all of these things, right? But if you look at the crowdfunding portals, you have the incentive based ones, and you've done a lot of crowdfunding, so I don't have to kind of, tell you about the system. But the incentive based ones funded a lot of projects, a lot of films. And they were sort of pre sale of participation in these films. So it depends on how you structure it, right? What kind of things are you attaching to the actual quote unquote pre selling of that project? So that's one thing that already has been sort of regulated in almost all jurisdictions. And then equity based crowdfunding came after, and we all participated in it because we wanted to see the liquidity, we wanted to involve the masses in our projects, and we wanted consumers involved in them. And with crowdfunding, with the equity funding, there were a lot of companies that tried to do the model of funding film and television product. Legion M was extremely successful. They, when Reg CF was limited to 1 million, they raised 1 million from the crowd. It was on a blind pool of films. We would call this a blind pool. And they kept raising it later through Reg A Plus on their page. They had a fundraising page that was attached to, I think, WeFunder at that time. And so we've seen these things funded already in these ways. And now we have Stoner Cats that pre-sold at $800 an episode. So yes, I think this model is going to take off, and the regulation may come in. But there was a regulation with equity crowdfunding, and all the companies that became a broker dealer went out of business. And all the companies that tried to become a technology portal, which is a lot of these companies are, they ended up staying in business. So you can kind of look at that history as you review this today.
I'd also like to invite Mark. You came up here and you had something that you wanted to say, and wanted to invite you to participate.
Just an amazing conversation. I'm happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Mark
Give us
is
your background.
amazing, by the way. But be short, Mark. This could be 3 hours. He really has
God,
easily
yeah,
3
you
hours
can't
worth of
ask what's my
background.
background.
No,
It's
no
like,
background. Here, yeah, no.
I'm like, how do I make this 30 seconds? Health, medicine, and then technology, supply chain management, workforce development, VR, AR integration, and then just, the blockchain, metaverse, everything.
Awesome. Well, you can answer a lot of questions then. So next time, as you come to this event, please invite all your friends, family, anybody who has questions. They can ask them freely. We're happy to, start with definitions, talk about what's going on in the space, and give us some of our projections. In terms of DeFi, do you guys see this actually being adopted by a variety of industries? I see it with Adrian right there with her in terms of entertainment, but do you see it in other industries? Okay, I think Jason, you may
Yeah,
be you may be the one to answer this.
yeah, right. So, I kind of look at NFTs almost like a digital rights management tool. And I think if we look way back to the way DRM started, with the idea that we're going to wrapper digital content and make digital content available to everybody through some revenue models. I think NFTs are going to follow a similar path, and I think they're going to morph into more of a DRM than as a commercial stamp that is in lieu of the actual thing that's being moved around. And so for our part, we've looked at how can you bring DNA into the NFT side, and does it solve any problems? And a great example is 23andMe, where all of us that submit our DNA to that organization, we're really submitting critical information in which we get no remuneration for, and in fact, we pay for that read, which they turn around and leverage with pharma companies. And so, what happens when everybody says, oh, wait a minute, I want to NFT my DNA, and you, 23andMe, if you want my DNA, you're going to have to give me a micropayment a la DRM. You're going to have to give me a micropayment in order to have access to this DNA. And so it also gives an opportunity to form unions. And so we don't really think of labor unions in the technology sense anymore. But I think that's potentially something to look at when one considers all of the digital content people provide on the Facebooks of the world. Again, you're providing the content, you're not getting any remuneration for it, and they're leveraging it and exploiting it and making a tremendous amount of money against that. So at the end of this, I think there are going to be multiple uses far beyond anything just in the entertainment space, but I think anything with ones and zeros are going to be fair game.
I want to give a shout out to Christian Kamir, who's not here with Destiny Capital. He's done an NFTs for real world presentation. We edit everyone's presentation from our Zoom events. So if you go to the Infiom Salon YouTube channel, you can see this presentation. It's really breakthrough on this whole supply chain management with NFTs and sort of the way I think of the supply chain management going forward. So if you have a chance, take a look at that. Patrick, you had a question?
Yes, hi. That's not a question. I think that's some sort of question, like maybe an explanation about the NFTs. I think you might want to hear. And because you mentioned, guys, the other use case of NFTs, right? Like how we can blend the real things with NFTs, and what are the cool other industries that we can apply the cool NFT unique properties, right? And we're actually doing the booking system that is based on NFT. Think booking an appointment at the doctor or haircut or barber, makeup artist, everyday local business you probably use in your city, like simple things. And yes, we are using NFTs for that. So it's a bit in contrast to the current art and gaming and these silly things. I mean, this is the obvious first use case for NFTs, but this has cool way of actually being used in real life, right? And from there are multiple opportunities, like that are changing the game of the current booking. And I think we can think from this place how it's gonna change the entire economy, because currently in this current financial world and in current economy, there are few possibilities for normal regular people. Should I elaborate on that, or you have some questions, or you want to let me speak?
Well,
Just gonna ask.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I agree with you that just basic consumer commerce, like booking your an appointment for a product or a service, that can also have other things attached to it, discounts, perks and things like that, is much better, implemented with NFT technology. So I really like that. Where else are you taking it?
Yeah, I think we are actually using that to price the time better, because normal booking system has a way to just book the thing, and the thing is obviously some kind centralized and useful only on the simple database. So that's obvious perk of the blockchain based solutions, but they can't do everything to their bookings what we are doing, because as you all know, the blockchain is not only the unhackable database. To the normal and regular people, it allows create financial apps that would be very, very sophisticated and complicated in terms of compliance. Like every guy that doesn't have tons of money can now create financial apps. And as we know from the history, open to the wider audience and wasn't so complicated enough that it bring more people into the space. There's an innovation here, right? For a lot of years, the banks and everything was blocking us from like the financials. So okay, I get back or elaborate on that so much. I keep it short. We are making on top of bookings auctions for the same appointments, and we allow people to fundraise their money for the appointments in the future. So imagine, okay, I know you are guys from the USA, so this example might sound weird for you, but we are based in Europe, right? And the doctor appointment is just a barber appointment or makeup artist appointment, and you have the insurance system in USA, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I think that you're saying that certain appointments are not easily accessible in certain jurisdictions, and you're creating an auction system using NFTs to book these appointments and, to the highest bidders. I get it. I think it's great.
Yeah, the first part about the blockchain was that the entire financial applications are not accessible to normal people, because you have in Poland the institution is named KNF, and in US is Security Exchange Commission, and probably you get to I don't know, submit some kind of application to manage people's money, right? And imagine that blockchain is taking the burden off people from making a financial innovation. That's a big value, because if we wanted to create the same application in Poland without blockchain, we would need a lot of compliance issues, right? And this is one thing. And the other thing, this is the other thing related to application we are doing. Yes, we are making people to pay more when they want something faster. The supply and demand stuff. Like I need my tooth is aging, and I need an appointment quickly, and there's nobody that's gonna take me in or take care of me. I can now pay more for the same appointment because it's an NFT, and he's gonna take me now.
I love it.
So
I
there's no
think it's
way.
awesome. We have to take John's
Yeah,
question.
I
I
stopped
love what
at
you're
this moment.
doing. I think it's fantastic. It's the next generation of the supply chain management application for managing people's time resources. I love it. I think it's great. We should
In
talk about it.
I was
It's
going to say,
great.
let's do it, because in 2019 I did that at a hackathon, and it's called Pop Right In. I have all the branding, I have everything. I could probably move you forward much more quickly, because this is sitting like on the back burner. But if you're doing it, I'm happy to contribute.
And you can use Adrian's help because she's an amazing marketer and you clearly have a lot of technology built out and it's awesome. Thank you for telling us about it. Happy to work with you.
Thanks.
John, you have a question? John
Yeah.
Simon?
Hi. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you guys for this. It's really incredibly informative. And I'm in a little over my head with it, as you know, Mariana. And obviously, what I've gleaned from this is it's an incredibly complicated ecosystem for NFTs. But I'm wondering if it's, I know this question could be many hours of an answer, but I'm wondering if in a kind of brief form, let's say we were starting out with something simple like a photo that we wanted to do an NFT around. And for the sake of argument, let's assume it's a photo of someone reasonably well known and with a reputation. What would be the challenges and the steps and some of the obvious pitfalls? Talking to a beginner on this, and who might one partner with, recognizing that it's very complicated, as I've already gleaned.
Oh, do I have lots to say
So
about this? But
can I
Scott, go
start?
ahead. Yeah.
Because there's one thing that comes before technology, and that's thinking about what the point is. Because, if this is, I don't know, JFK, like, and it's going to sell for $25 million, you don't mess with the tech, you just call Christie's. Like, that's Scott's opinion because you'll get the most value, they will deal with all the problems for you, and you'll make a name and a splash with that.
Well, I
So
said
that's set up front.
relatively well known. It's not, so that there is a challenge. It's probably not necessarily going to get its best accommodation. This hypothetical on
Sure.
not Van Gogh or Matisse or Walker Evans, but let's say it's something with reasonable marketing potential, and one is willing to do some work, but is looking for an in on how to begin this process. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people have this question, truthfully.
So my
So Adriana,
okay, thanks. So my number one thing, lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. Just based on what you said, one thing is relatively known. Okay, so that is probably someone who would be, it would constitute a celebrity. Celebrities have the right of publicity, so it's not just, if they sign a release, and when they took photographs and a photographer has it, great, but who took the picture, right? There's all sorts of issues if you have a photograph
And
taken.
let me interrupt you for a second. Let's
Yeah,
assume we've gotten chain of title and copyright and ownership out of the. I realize that's an important question, but let's
it
say
kills 95%
way.
of them. But okay, so if you have all the rights secured, so you absolutely can NFT it, then what I suggest is, depending on who it is, how large of an audience do you want to go? Do you want to have a one of one? Do you want to include more people, right? Do you want to create a community around this thing? So if you want to create a community, then you need to have multiple levels: common, uncommon, rare, super rare, and one of a kind. And then that way you can have those lower level collectibles, which are really more like commemorative, I was here, proof of attendance protocol kind of things that can be had for like $5 or whatever.
Well, Let me interrupt again. Let's say it's something that in the old world
Yeah.
you would consider doing 2 or 300 or
Limited edition.
limited edition of.
Okay, so that's super easy. You would create a really super kick ass 3D one of one, and then you would do limited editions, which have little less functionality and maybe add some bonus things to the one of one. But I would always have a one of one just because that's the one that's going to get you the 7 figures, 8 figures. If you can sell out the limited edition, which you could, I mean, if you look at what Gary Vee did, he sold limited editions for $15,000, but they also included tickets to his live events. So you want to see what's the package without knowing who the person is. I can't give you extra ideas because each celebrity vertical has its own way of diving into the audience and really getting traction and virality and thus more commas on the bottom line. But you're going to want to do a 60-day lead up campaign. You're going to want to drive the entire community into a whitelist, build an email list, and then you're going to want to figure out a way, depending on what celebrity it is, to do some kind of media tie-in or something that's unique in the NFT world that hasn't been done yet, so that you can get media attention and mainstream media to drive awareness into the rest of the investor pool. You're going to want to leverage crypto Twitter. That is where all the investors are for NFTs. They all have Twitter accounts, all of them. There's lists of the top crypto investors, depending on, if you're going to go really big and you're going to hit millions of dollars, then you're going to want to identify those people and start wooing them. create a Twitter list of all of the crypto investors so that you can start showing them love and liking and retweeting their stuff, so they start recognizing your avatar, so that when you post stuff, they'll see it, because hopefully they'll follow you back once you start giving them enough love. You definitely want to go with the mainstream media. You want to have a Telegram channel that is monitored, and I prefer Discord because you can do more with it and it's a little bit more community driven. And then you start promoting people with badges and giving them like street team cred for being high value community members. And then they do the tell a friend thing. You get everybody to tell a friend, and then you have a big launch event. And I would almost do it like a Christie's auction. Instead of doing an NFT launch where you've got it going over days, you can't get celebrities to participate for days or 30 days. I mean, it's insane. So you want to do a big, I would almost do a simulcast televised event, which you could do on streaming platforms. And you could literally build your own Roku channel for about $200 and do an entire thing on that and get everybody to download that Roku channel for free and do a live event on television where everybody's watching at the same time, or simulcast on the computer. But do something different, right? And make it a big event.
How
That's
much
what I
of a
would do.
marketing
Hey,
budget
John,
do you
we got to
requires?
interrupt you. We're well over our time
$250,000 minimum for something like that.
to market it. So,
Yeah.
John, why don't you come back next Tuesday, and let's have Adrian and Esther Bob, who runs Monax, which is a company that creates legal contracts attached to the blockchain transactions. And she's introduced me to half a dozen attorneys in the space that have done work with all of the top tier, Christie's, Sotheby's, et cetera, houses, all the way to the top tier marketplaces, and just have a discussion on all of the different steps you need to take. Maybe, it's a longer discussion. We try to keep these at an hour out of respect to all of our presenters. You can also reach out to Adrian directly. But if you come back, that's a perfect question to start our next Tuesday discussion with. I love it. So I want to thank everyone for your time. I'm sorry we went over time. Look forward to seeing you Wednesday at 1:30. We talk about venture initiation, so some of this discussion applies to that. And most of our speakers are invited to that as well, so you can ask them additional questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Jeanette, for organizing everything.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.